Thanks, Raina. Hi, everybody. I am Shannon Kendall, and I work for American Crafts, and I am excited to be in the Michael's classroom today with you again, because I've been here before, but I hope some of you are new. Welcome if you have been to one of my classes before. Welcome back, and welcome if you're new, because I am so excited to get to show you some fun techniques using color pour resin, which is one of my new favorite mediums to work with. I've been working with it for a while and teaching classes here for Michael's. And I just love working with this, and I can't wait to show you so that you can see how fun it is. And if you haven't tried it, it's going to be a new love. And if you have tried it, I hope I can show you some tips and techniques today that will help you to have success in your resin projects. Okay, so we're just going to jump in because I have a lot to show you today. So the first thing I wanted to show you was the mold that we're going to be using today. So this class focuses on one mold primarily, and it is this drawer knob mold. So it is a fun little mold that has 4 spots for making your own custom knobs. So it's called a drawer knob mold, but you wouldn't have to necessarily use these knobs only on drawers. You can use them on a lot of things, and we'll talk about that during class. But we've been getting a lot of questions about how to use this mold, and we want people to have success with it and love it as much as we do. So we've focused this entire class on this one mold. So I'm going to show you a bunch of stuff you can do with this one mold, but all the techniques I'm showing you today you can use in any of your resin crafting projects, okay? So what does it come with? It comes with the mold with the 4 little knobs in it, like I showed you already. And then it also comes with some hardware. So these are just a standard hardware. It's just a screw and a little nut on the back to put on your cabinets or your drawer fronts. But I'm going to show you how to attach this, and it's so easy. If this is not the standard size for whatever you're using your knobs on, I'll show you how it will work the same way to attach any hardware that you have for your item, okay? So I'm just gonna put this away. Okay, the next thing we need, so there's our mold. The next thing that we need is our resin. So we're working with a 2-part epoxy resin today. So you've got both parts, you've got A and B, okay? So the A is the resin and the B is the hardener. And when they're alone in their bottles, you can see they're really fluid, very viscous, fancy word for flowing. And when you combine the two together, a chemical reaction happens and it starts to cure and harden and form into this really tough, durable acrylic epoxy plastic. So we're going to start right in getting this mixing, and then I'm going to tell you the other things you need, because I found that, you know, mixing is the slow part. So with this resin, you want to use equal parts. So you're going to use equal parts A and equal parts B. And I like to label my bottles, as you see that I have here, and I've even labeled the tops of my bottles, my lids, so that you can see that, so that I don't mix up my cap with my bottle. Because of that chemical reaction that happens when you mix the two, if I were to swap these, my bottle lid might get stuck onto there because that chemical reaction would happen in the lid of my bottle. So I keep those labeled and separate. I also like to label my little mixing cups. So right there, you can see I just wrote on them with a Sharpie. So it's just an A and a B. And these little cups come with the resin that's in the class supply list. And I just wrote on them with a Sharpie and then put a little piece of Scotch tape over the top. And the reason I covered it with Scotch tape is that when I clean these, I like to clean them with rubbing alcohol. So when I do that, then I won't wipe off my Sharpie because rubbing alcohol will take the Sharpie off. So I just cover it with Scotch tape, and I've used these a ton of times and they're still perfectly easy to be read. So, okay. This is not on the class list, but this is one of my favorite products to use with resin, and I'm going to use it today because I'm going to be mixing kind of a lot of resin to show you all the things we're doing in class today. But it's just a little silicone baking cup, just those squishy little cups that you can get on the baking aisle. I'm sure Michael's has something similar to this there that you could get, and it's got measurement lines inside for me. And the reason I love these is resin doesn't stick to silicone, so it is awesome and easy to clean. Even if I forget about it and I let resin completely cure and harden in there, I can just pop it right out, just like it's a mold. And that's what the molds are also made of, so it makes sense, right? Okay, so I'm going to set these aside. You can use these. I use them a lot, especially when I'm doing small amounts of resin, and they have the measurements on the side. You just make sure you're measuring equal parts A and B. So I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm just going to use my little cup here. First of all, I need gloves. We'll talk about that first. Resin is sticky, super sticky business when it's wet. So I really recommend you use some sort of glove to protect your fingers. I have just a plastic tablecloth down on my work surface. You could also put down a sheet of parchment paper That works really well. Or a silicone baking mat, that also, because we love silicone, right? Doesn't stick to that, is also a great surface to work on with resin. Okay, I'm also wearing my apron for the same reason. If this gets on your clothes, you can clean it up really quick or on a surface or on your hands with a little bit of rubbing alcohol and a baby wipe. But I'm being preventative and wearing an apron because I've ruined too many shirts playing with resin. Okay, so I'm just going to put my hand at the back of my measuring cup here so I can see the reading lines inside, and I'm going to fill it with 40 milliliters of part A, and then I'm going to do 40 of part B. So I'm going to come up to the 80 milliliter line. It's kind of fun, these little cups, because you can just measure it all in one cup. Super easy to clean. Okay, I'm already going to grab a baby wipe and just wipe up my little spill. It's handy to have those around. Okay, so now that I've got my equal parts A and B resin, I'm just going to stir this really slowly. So the key to incorporating it and not getting a lot of bubbles worked in, because you don't want a lot of bubbles, that will create holes in your finished project. I'm just going to stir this relatively slowly. If you've been in my classes before, you know that I always say this is the hardest part for me. I just want to stir it really fast. So when you first start incorporating the two parts together, you'll see in there that it's really, really cloudy. I don't know if you can see that very well from this camera angle, but it gets cloudy, and there's like these wisps of white creaminess that are starting as the chemical reaction starts. And what you want to do is stir it slowly, scraping the sides, scraping the bottom, and this is just a regular craft stick I'm using. And just incorporate it fully. And once it's fully incorporated, this will be a nice, perfectly clear liquid. So if it's cloudy, you got to keep going.
So we do have one question. I want to know how much you used, how much of each that you used.
I used 40 milliliters of each, and that filled my cup that full. Because I know I'm going to be using a lot of it, I might have to mix more as we go, because this will only be really fluid and easy to work with for about 30 minutes. So if I go past that and it starts to begin to cure, then it will be too hard to work with for what I'm going to try to show you. So you have about a 30 to 40 minute window to use it before it starts to cure completely. And then it also takes, for your finished project, it's going to take 12 to 24 hours for it to get completely hard. And then it's at the point where you can remove it from your mold. So I recommend stirring for 3 to 5 minutes. If you get some bubbles in there, don't worry about it. I'll show you some tricks to get them out. One trick is to kind of tap it on the table while you're stirring. Those bubbles will naturally want to rise up to the top when you tap it like that. Gravity helps you out with that one. And I'll show you some other tricks once we have it in our molds. I've also found that if I stir my resin first and I just kind of let it hang out and sit on my table in the cup for a few minutes while I get other things ready, then those bubbles tend to rise up to the top on their own as well. So you can just kind of let it rest for a few minutes, and that will also help with any bubbles you've worked in. Okay, it's starting to get clearer.
And also just a heads up to our viewers that the mold at Michael's, the screws and hardware are not included, but thankfully Shannon is going to show us how to do it with our own hardware.
Ah, awesome. Yes, it's very easy. Sometimes I think that's even better when you have your own, because you have the right length of screw for the depth of your item. You don't have to use, these are pretty long ones that I have that it comes with.
And if you're anything like me, you're a stickler about color. So I don't want to put
silver
screws, and if I need gold, kind of a deal.
That's right. Yep. Always customizing is the best thing, right? Make it personal to you and what you want to do. Okay, we're almost there. So I like to just lift the resin out and kind of see how it's flowing and look at it on my stick to see if it looks fully blended. I could probably stir this just a minute more. Sometimes this just feels like forever when I'm stirring it, and it's just a few short minutes. That's why I always tend to rush. work bubbles into my resin. Okay, I think we're about ready. All right, so now we have our clear resin, and I could make clear knobs with this if I wanted to, but I want to make some colored knobs. And so today I've kind of themed my class on bringing nature inside. We've all been inside a lot this year, I think, and at least we have in my family. And I think I miss being like out, and when we do have a chance to go out and go on a hike or something like that, I've always really enjoyed that time. And so I'm going to show you how to do some techniques that remind me of nature and bringing the outdoors into our resin projects. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to start with is this. We're going to use some dyes, and these are alcohol ink dyes. Let me just turn them this way so that you can see them. And they are, let me get them for this camera right here. So you can see this is a new set that's available at Michael's, and it's a neutrals, or a naturals, I think is what it's called, naturals opaque dye. It's on the class list. And it comes with these really pretty colors that are different tones of kind of browns and some darker and lighter purples and this beautiful copper metallic. So I'm going to start using this. I love this new dye set, so I'm going to start using it. And we're going to do kind of a 2-color pour, but you're going to say, wait, you're doing 2 colors. Why are you getting 4 cups? Because I'm going to show you how to kind of make a fun, easy, marbled knob that looks reminiscent of rock. Okay, so always give your dyes a little shake with the lid on. And I like to just shake each one before I start, because the color will sometimes sink to the bottom of the bottle. It's just a good idea with all these dyes. Now, these are opaque dyes, which means that you can't see through them. They're going to be kind of a solid, milky opacity. And there are translucent dyes also available at Michael's if you wanted them to be more clear. And we'll use some of those in a few minutes. I'll show you some examples. Okay, so I'm just going to stir this one more little time. I saw a little streak of cloudy, so I'm just going to stir it just a smidge more. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to divide it into 4 cups. So I'm going to end up using 4 colors on this pour. And 2 of them, I'm going to use just a little bit more. Doesn't take very much for this knob mold. So what I'm mixing here probably will be more than enough. And then I just need a little bit of these 2 colors. So I'm just doing a tiny bit. Okay, and these are just little plastic cups that you can find anywhere. You can use the paper ones. They're about the size of those little bathroom cups. For those of you that remember Dixie cups, that dates me a little bit, but I think they're still around. So you can use Dixie cups or these little plastic cups. Okay, and I'm just going to put a few of the colors in. Just doing a couple drops each. And actually, I'm going to save this one because I actually did the dark brown, but I didn't want to use that one. So I'm just going to pour a little more resin into here. I'm going to save that for the next project when I do use it. So I'm going to do the purples and the coppers and a white. So I have the darkest purple there. The color that I originally dropped in there is kind of a coffee brown color. I'm going to save that one for another one. Doesn't take very much, again, because we're working with a mold that has small openings. This is that beautiful copper. Put a little bit of that in there. And then I'm also going to bring in from the metallics opaque dye set, just a regular white opaque dye. Okay. All right. Now we just got to stir these up. So I'm just going to take a craft stick and stir these up. And if you stir it and you think that's too light, I wanted it more pink or more purple than that, then just go ahead. Like I think this one needs a little more. It's kind of a light color. Just add a few more. I do recommend if you are making a whole set of knobs, more than just what you do in your first pour. Let's say you would need to, you want to make them exactly the same, but you want to make 20 of them. Then I would say on the first time, as you're getting to your colors, just keep a little scratch paper by you and mark down how many drops of each color and about how much resin you're putting in the cup. So you could, use your measuring cup as you pour it out, do it in little 10 milliliter amounts, and so that you can recreate that same exact color if that's something that you want to do. Sometimes another reason I love doing nature projects is it's nothing in nature is exactly the same. So you have a little leeway to let it be just what it is, because resin sometimes, you know, has a mind of its own. It doesn't always flow exactly the same. And doing things that are more natural looking like that makes it really easy to allow for imperfection. Okay, here's our copper. Those metallics are really beautiful. They have this really beautiful shimmer to it. That one I don't need more because it just, those metallics go a long way. And then this last one is my white. I just needed a tiny bit of that, but I'm going to put one more drop because I want it to be really, for sure, opaque white. Okay. All right, so you can see I didn't count my drops. I'm just letting it be and letting it get kind of close. We'll see how it compares to ones that I made on another day when I show you the finished ones when we pull them out. Okay, so now I've got my 4 colors. All right, and our mold is ready right here. And we're just going to take our mold and pour these right in. And I'm going to start with these 2 pinks. So I have the light pink and dark pink right here. And I'm just going to pour them straight into this mold right here. Just 2 at a time, just pouring them right in, half and half. My hands are going to be kind of in the way. There's half. There's half. I'm just going to keep going. Then you can see I've started getting this little bit of a division here. Now I'm going to just come in with these other colors and add them in kind of along that line. And I'm just using my craft stick to place some of the other color. Here's my metallic. Love the metallics. Just kind of putting it here and there. You can come back in again with these pinks. This is kind of the equivalent, if any of you have done paint pouring, this kind of method with resin is similar to that in that it just kind of flows where it wants to. Just kind of let it be natural where it wants to go. And I can even take my craft stick, or I wanted to show you guys these fun little tools that I have. These are the silicone resin tools, the color pour resin silicone tools that are available at Michael's. And these have fun, different little tips. So this is a little scoop and a little pointy end, and then it's got these 2 flat ends for spreading. So this one is my very favorite. I use it all the time. And I'm just going to use it to kind of give this a little swirl and help it out a little bit more. You could also use a toothpick. Let me grab my baby wipe. And you can see I'm kind of just swirling that around a little bit to make it look more natural. I'm just going to go ahead and use the rest of my resin to fill this one knob. Then we'll do movie magic and show you the unmolding. So see how you can just keep layering, keep going, little at a time, till you get it to where you like it. And I like to fill these knob molds all the way to the top, personally. At the end, if the resin sinks a little or you realize you didn't fill it all the way at the top, you can always do a clear layer on the top. And that won't affect your final design at all, but it just rounds it up nice at the top. Okay, we'll do a little bit more copper. A little bit more. Now, as this cures, it is going to swirl and change even more than what I'm doing right here. So you just have to wrap your head around that and be okay with the imperfection of it. That the resin kind of has a mind of its own. It's going to do its own thing. So I can kind of help it along a little bit and let it know that I want some swirls. I want those colors to kind of blend. And then I'm going to take my tool. This is another trick, just in case I have any bubbles stuck down in the bottom part of this mold. I'm just going to take my tool and kind of rub it around the edge and make sure to release any of those bubbles up. Now, I forgot something very important for success with this mold that I forgot to mention at the beginning, and it's part of the whole reason that I wanted to use this mold in this class. So let me backtrack a little bit and explain how this mold works. So the bottom of this mold is the back of your knob. So the bottom down here is the back of your knob. And you'll see in here, there's this little depression where it's a little bit deeper. And that little circle becomes the spacer so that when you grasp your knob and pull, you have somewhere for your fingers to go. So most resin molds, you're working opposite of this. So most resin molds like the color pour resin coaster molds or anything like that, you're working from the front is actually the bottom of your mold and you're working up toward the back as you pour your resin in. This one is opposite. So the back is the back and you're working up toward the front of your knob. And one thing that's cool about that with this mold is that I can actually kind of see what the front of my knob is going to look like in the end. And when molds are reversed like that, that's really fun for a lot of different techniques. But you always get a surprise when you unmold it, right? Because you're not quite certain what the front is going to look like until you take it out of the mold. This one allows you to kind of work on the top of it. It allows you to add in things to it and get really good placement. So it's a really great feature of this knob mold. I think that some of the trouble that people were having is they were using it thinking that the bottom was the front. And so I wanted to be really clear to explain that on this one, the top is the front, the bottom is the back of your mold. Okay.
And we
Glad I didn't forget that.
About how full do you fill the mold?
I fill it all the way to the top for this one. And as I'm showing you the different techniques today, you're going to see that sometimes I'll do a layer that's just partially filling the mold, and then I'll come in again and do another layer after that cures up to the top. But I always fill them up to the top. That will give you a knob that is about that thick. So I don't know if you can see that compared to my fingers. Okay. And there's that little back part, that spacer that I was talking about is right there. Okay. So if you wanted a thinner knob, then you could just fill it partially full. But this is like a standard good size knob pull.
And we have somebody asking if they can cure with a UV lamp.
This is not UV resin. So this is the 2-part epoxy resin. I'm going to show you how to attach your hardware with UV resin, but this one actually has a longer cure time than UV resin. So this one can't cure in a UV light. It just cures with time. So it's going to sit for 12 to 24 hours before you unmold it. And I just tap it to make sure it's solid before I take it out of the mold. And one more trick too to get the bubbles out, I'm going to do this real quick to this one, is to use this heat tool. And this is just a standard stamper's heat tool. This is, stampers have probably used these. Mine's all messy now because I use it for resin. But you just heat and low airflow is what you need to get those bubbles to rise up. So you could take, this works really great. I'll show you how to do it. I just go over it just slightly. And I can see those bubbles start to come up to the top and pop. There we go. You can see even with that low airflow, it's moving my die just a little bit. So that's why you want low airflow. So a blow dryer isn't the best for raising the bubbles up. The blow dryers are fun to use with resin if you really want to move your resin or move your die because it's got a lot of air. You could also take a lighter and just run it across there and that heat would make them rise up. Okay, so after this sits for 12 to 24 hours, then this is what we have. So you can see this is the top of my mold right here. Okay, and we'll just pop them out. They're super easy to get out of these molds. You just pop them right out. Okay.
And someone wants to know if they can put new resin on top of dry resin.
You can, and we're going to do that today, actually. Yes. Okay, so now how do we attach hardware? So we have our pretty little molds here. Don't they look like rock? I just love how they look. And they kind of look like marbled. And we're going to add our hardware really easily using UV resin. So this is on the class list. So I just turn my knobs face up like this, and this is the UV resin. It comes in a little bottle like this that looks like a nail polish bottle, actually. And it is black to keep any sunlight out because this cures in the UV rays. So if sunlight gets into it, it's going to cure it. It'll take a lot longer than a UV lamp, but it still cures it. Okay, so I'm just going to open this up. Okay, and I'm going to put my it's just got this little brush like nail polish, and I'm going to just put a little bit on here. This is the best glue. It's basically, I'm using it as a glue to adhere my hardware. So this is where you can use whatever hardware you want, whatever works for what you're using your knob for. Okay, and these are my screws. They have this flat top, which is nice for this. Most screws do, I think. And I'm just going to put a tiny bit on there as well. So I'm just painting it onto the top of the screw. Just a thin coat. Okay. Now I'm going to shut this so I don't get any UV ray lights into that UV resin. And this is my little UV light. Okay, so mine's a baby one. You can use the same one you do gel nails with if you have one of those, if you like to do gel nails at home. Works the same. This one's just a small color pour resin one, but you can use any UV light. I've even seen them on little flashlights that you can get. Okay, so I'm just centering these on the spacer part of the back where I put that UV resin. And then I'm just going to hold my light, since mine's short and my screws are kind of long, I'm just holding it over the top of my knobs. And this will cure super fast. I think this is a 30-second, maybe 1 minute or 30-second light. That's the timer on this one. It doesn't have a countdown on this little baby one. But I like to do it for 1 to 3 minutes. But you'll see as soon as I do it even just once, just for this short little period of time, that these are really secure on there. The reason I'm not just setting it on top of the screws for this first go is that I want to make sure that those screws don't move from where I place them. And so I'm just being careful with my light at first for the first round. And then for subsequent times, so see, you can see that's already really secure on there, right? See how strong that is and how quick it was? This is great to use as a glue. So for future ones, I'm just going to set my lamp right on top of those screws now that I know they're secure and just hit it again. And I would just do that like probably for 1 minute to 3 minutes is the best. And then once you've done that, I'm going to skip all the curing so we can get on to other techniques. But once you've done that, then you can just slide this into your drawer, put them on your closet doors. I mean, what the possibilities are endless. And we're going to talk at the end of a bunch more ideas that you can use these knobs for that aren't necessarily a drawer pull. But this is how those turned out. So that's our first technique. So that one was a 2-color pour technique. All right.
So we do have some questions about the screws.
Sure.
Can they put it in the knob while the resin is still soft?
Not on this mold. And the reason why is because we're working at the front, at the top. And you want your hardware to be always on the back of your knob. So for this knob mold, there are others out there, I'm sure, on the market that are inverted so that the front is down. And then you can put your hardware just right into the resin while it's curing. Since this one is oriented in this direction, where you're working from the bottom to the top of your knob, then you can't just put it in there or else it would be coming out of the front of your knob. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it has to be added after the fact.
Gotcha. And they would like to know if this, if the UV resin can be used on other things, such as plastic, stone, wood, other surfaces.
Yes. Yep, it makes a great adhesive. I've used it on a ton of different things and it works great and it sets really quickly. That's a great benefit for that one. Okay, so this is the next knob that we're going to make. It's another marbled knob, but I'm going to show you a different technique to get this look. Okay, and so to save on time, I am going, because there's a lot I want to show you today, I'm just going to start with this one that I've prepped. So you can see my mold is just partway full right there. And I just mixed a few drops of my white opaque and a few drops of black opaque ink and stirred it into my clear resin. And then I filled my mold about, it's a little more than a third, almost half full. And I let that set until it was hard enough to tap. Okay, so that's probably up to 12 hours. You can check it after 3 or 4 hours and it might be hard enough to go ahead and do the next step. So for the next step, ignore this one because I'm going to do that one in just a minute, the green one. But we're going to work on this marbled black look. And that is doing a technique called the ink drop method. So I'm going to take my resin. It's still good. I can still stir it that we mixed before. And I'm just going to pour some clear right on top of that cured gray layer. Okay, coming mostly to the top. Okay, and now I'm going to hit it with my heat tool just to release some of those bubbles. Okay, now normally when I'd be doing this not in a class, I would let this sit for maybe 5 minutes just to let that cure just a little bit more. We'll probably be fine because my resin has been sitting over here in its little cup while we've been working on the other stuff. So I think it will probably work similarly. So I don't know if you guys have seen before those techniques where they do the blooms of resin by just dropping the alcohol ink right into the resin itself. And we're going to do that, but we're going to do it from the front. So usually you do that upside down and you turn it and you see what happens. But if you do it from the front, you get a similar look, but it can turn into something more marbled. Okay, and it takes the tiniest bit. So I'm just going to do a tiny drop of black. One, if I can get it. There we go. And then I'm going to take my white. This is just the opaque white. And I'm going to go over the top of that black. Okay, and I did 2 there. So you can see it's starting to bloom and that white will start to like move through the black. For some reason, it's this really cool technique where the white pigment pushes the other dyes away from itself. And so it creates this really cool effect. And then I can just take my favorite little tool again. Here's my little sharp end and just kind of swirl it around and move it. Now, if you want more clear, that's why I don't fill it all the way to the top, because clear will also push the dye away. So I can put in a little bit of clear and kind of move the dye that way as well to get that bloomed, marbled look. But again, it's resin, so it's going to kind of do its own thing, right? And that is it. And in the end, when you unmold it and all that dye has settled down into the resin, that's how you get this marbled effect. It will look something similar to that. And you can see from the side where, well, it's kind of full now because the gray has moved up higher on this one, but it is a clear layer on the very top, and that's where that dye is encased inside there. And you'll see as you watch it that it'll start to settle down in there. If you need to, and there's dye on the top still, go ahead and put a little more clear on the top, and that way it will seal that dye in nice and well so that you don't have sticky tops to your knobs. This one's looking more like a flower. See, every time you do it, it turns out just a little bit different. But like I said, you can kind of check on it and play with it because you have about a half hour to 40 minutes before it starts to really cure. And even after that, for about an hour, you can still move your silicone tool through there and get a really cool effect. Okay, any questions on that one? That one was a quick one because of my prepping the step first.
No,
okay,
we have had people ask if they can add stuff to the resin like beads and crayon shavings, and I know we're getting to
definitely.
that. I told them
you can definitely do that. And on this one, we're going to add some foil. So I'll show you how to do that. And it's the same technique with anything you want to add. And then I'm going to add some botanicals. So I'm going to add wood, and we're going to add some leaves and some different things like that into the knobs. Okay, for this one, we're going to do the foil knobs. So this is our final knob product that we're aiming for, where we have these foil flakes suspended in the top, and then this really pretty, soft, gilded edge of gold. And I'm going to show you how to do that gilded edge and how to put the foil in, okay? Okay, so to do the gilding, there's this awesome product, and it's mica powder, and it comes in these little jars, and it's on the class list. And this one is the metallic set, and it's just one color from the metallic set, but it comes with 4 colors. And this one is this pretty gold coppery color. And I'm just taking a regular paintbrush. This is just an acrylic paintbrush. And it can be any shape, really, whatever you like. I'm going to try to not tip out my black, so hopefully you can see this. And I'm just going to paint this mica directly into my mold. And this is what's going to give us that nice metallic pearl. I spilled a little, so I'm going to pick it up off the table. Outer edge to our knob. And I'm just going to bring it all the way up the sides and make sure I get down in the crevices. Tip my head over just a little to see if I can get it in there. Okay, and it doesn't matter if there's excess powder, it will get absorbed into the resin. You just want to make sure you didn't miss any spots and that you got it all the way up to the top, okay? And then when we pour our resin into that, it's going to bond with the resin and stay permanent on the sides with this really pretty shimmer. Okay, then what I did is I went ahead and I mixed my white opaque, and I mixed, this is from the Cool Opaque die set, and it's just a nice teal, but I even wanted it lighter than this because it's pretty bold, and I wanted kind of a Tiffany blue. So I added these two together into some clear resin until I got the color that I wanted, and then I just poured it straight into here onto my mica powder. And you can see here that I've got that set now in this little part of the mold. And it's ready now. It's been curing. It's cured solid. I can tap it. And now we're ready to add our foil flakes. So there's two ways you can do it. This, I'm going to show you my favorite way first, and then I'll tell you the shortcut way. Just going to make sure that I have my gilding still up in this edges, because I think I kind of wiped it off when I was preparing my mold. Okay. All right. So now I'm just going to take this clear resin that's still good from when we first mixed it, and I'm going to pour that right into my knob mold on top of that pretty Tiffany blue color. These might be my favorite knobs that came out of this class, actually. I love how they look. I got to think of somewhere I can put them in my house. Okay, then we're going to grab our foil flakes. And these are also on the class list. I put a label on mine. But these are these gold foil flakes, and they come in a set of a bunch of metallics. So it's got copper and gold. We're going to use the copper again in a minute. But my favorite way to place these in my resin is to use, again, my favorite tool. And I'm just going to dip it in my clear resin just a little bit, okay, to get the end sticky. And then I'm going to just use it to pick up my gold foil, because your hands are probably pretty sticky. You can see on my glove there, I've got stickiness. So I don't like touching the foil with my glove, or else I lose all this beautiful foil onto my hands and I can't get it off. So I just use my little tool, and then I'm just going to place it in here kind of randomly and swirl it around. It's like little foil sheets. So it's like, you can break them up. Let me use my other tool to help me do that. This one's a big piece, but they just tear really easy and come apart really easy. You can see that. You can see how it kind of even sticks to this. And I don't want to lose any of that pretty, so I want to just move them into the resin, into that clear layer. Pick up this little guy. So you can just keep going as long as you want to, spreading them out, wadding them up on themselves. However you want to get the foil in there. You can break them apart even when they're in the resin to get them to move away from each other a little bit. And now that I know that I have my foil in there like I like it, I left myself a little bit of wiggle room. So I'm just going to fill this all the way up to the top. And that's it. That's how simple that was. Now, another way you can add foil is just by mixing the foil flakes directly into a little plastic cup of clear resin. And that works as well. And then you can just pour it in and let the foil flakes go wherever they may. So if you'd rather do it that way and just stir it in directly into the cup and then pour it into here, that's another way you can get that foil. I kind of like to decide where I want it to go. And you can do that after you pour it into. It's up to you. It's just a preference. Okay, and now that one's ready. That's all I have to do to it. And so I just set that aside as well. Let it cure completely. And then when you pop them out of the mold, again, this is what it looks like. So I'll get a close-up of that one maybe.
So can we confirm?
You can see those pretty foil flakes.
Oh, that on the list, it says the Color Pour Resin Metallic Pearl Powder. That's what the mica powder that you're referring to? Yeah.
That is it. Yes.
Okay.
That is it. And that's how you get that. So you can see that I didn't do anything else to that mica, and it just, the pearl powder just stayed right on the sides. It gives a nice little shimmer. So that was a fun one. I love that one. I got to find somewhere beautiful to put those, maybe in my master bathroom on my cabinet doors. I love how they turned out. Okay, I'm just going to move my foil. I kind of exploded out of my jar. I had a really full jar of foil there. Okay, little cleanup. Okay, and then we're going to move to putting something actually into there. So we're going to do, these are my prepped pieces, and we're going to do both wood and a botanical shape. My glove is black, so I don't know if you can see that very well. But there's a little piece of wood in this one, and then I have this botanical leaf in this knob, okay? These are really fun. Again, it's bringing the nature in. So let's start with the leaf. And so to do that one, I mixed and I prepped this already. So this little part of my mold right here is just white and a tiny, teeny bit. Like I dipped the tip of my silicone tool and then mixed it into the white of the mica powder, the gold mica powder. And that gave me that really nice, pretty creamy color. I don't know if it's translating on camera, but it's not pure white. It's like a creamy, slightly gold color. And I did that with the mica powder as well. You can stir that mica powder right into your resin and get this beautiful metallic shimmer. You can do a little tiny bit to change the tone, which is what I did there. Play with that mica powder. It's super fun. Okay, so now I have this little leaf sprig. It's a stem, a floral stem from Michael's. And I liked that it looked kind of fern-like. And it's super pretty. And I can get a lot of knobs out of this because I'm just going to use one little trio of leaves for each knob. So I just have my scissors here and I'm going to just cut it really close to the top of my little leaf. And I've set this hard and I'm ready to put that in there. Okay, so here's the tip when you're adding stuff in. Pour a little bit of clear resin in first. Not all the way to the top, just kind of to get a base layer. And then I just take this piece and dip it right into my clear resin. I found that when I dip my stuff that I'm putting into a resin mold and get it fully coated with resin, this is a messy bit, but you could use tweezers if you wanted to. Maybe we should invent silicone tweezers for this. But you can see that I've coated that completely in resin, and that's going to help prevent bubbles in my finished project. So now I'm just going to lay it down into my mold. I'm going to clean my gloves off a little bit with a baby wipe. I always keep baby wipes handy. You can also use just a little bit of rubbing alcohol, and that gets it right off. I'll clean my molds with rubbing alcohol too. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so now you can see I have my leaf in there, and now all I have to do is just add in the rest of my clear resin. These are so simple, you guys. You're gonna love making them, and they have such wow factor. So pretty. Okay, and I'm just gonna fill that to the top. You can always, if you see a little piece poking up, you can just push it back down into your resin with your silicone tool. But also I like to work the bubbles out. And then I'll just hit it with my heat gun again and let that set for 12 to 24 hours. And then you can unmold them and you have your really pretty finished botanical knobs. Let's see if we can get close. So you can see how easy that was. And on the side, you can see that clear layer versus the creamy layer on the bottom. And the leaf is just suspended in there. So these you can kind of check on because you can see, I don't know if you can tell, but my leaf that I just put in there is popping up just a tiny bit out. And so until it really cures completely, I might keep an eye on it and every 10 minutes or so come over and just push it down in there to make sure it's staying where I want it to. It's really, and eventually it will cure enough that it just holds it into place, which is what I did with those over there. Again, if you want to, you can do another clear coat on the top to kind of give it that finished, polished top. Now for the wood one. So the wood one I did in a similar way. I just made a black bottom. So you can see there that it's just black filled about halfway up on my mold. Okay, and I just used that same black opaque dye that we have been using in this class. And I let that cure until I could tap it. Okay, so it just depends on the temperature of your room and how long it takes to cure, but just give it a little tap. If your finger goes in at all, it's not quite ready. Okay, and then I just took these awesome little discs that I found at Michael's on the wood crafting aisle. And these are they are 1.5 inch round wood discs. And I just had my husband take our garden shears. I think that's what he ended up using because he said it was just easiest, and just snapped them in half. So he just cut them in half. And then I'm going to put these little wood slices into my knob, just the same way. And these, if you were in the last knob class I did last week, I was talking about how the wood has a lot of space in there, and so air gets trapped in there. And so you get a lot of little micro bubbles in resin when you're using wood with it. But I tried something this week, and we'll see if it works. But I pre-treated these, so I just sprayed them with a clear coat to see if I could seal that air inside the wood. And I'm thinking that that will probably solve that micro bubble problem. Okay, so you can do it just as is. You can try my tip and paint it with a Mod Podge or a clear coat spray to seal it before you put it in your resin. Now I'm just going to do the same exact thing. I'm just going to put a little bit of this resin, this clear resin, on top of my cured black layer. And I'm going to take my little piece of wood and I'm going to dip it right into my clear resin.
So we had
Getting
some
close
people
to the bottom
asking
now.
about the leaves. Can they do real leaves instead of artificial? Can they do dried?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can try anything in there. You can put all kinds of stuff in resin. It's super fun. And I always say, try it, because you can try it on a small project like this. This is a perfect size mold, because if it doesn't work, whatever you're trying to put in your resin, then you've only used this tiny bit of resin to do the experiment and see if it's going to work out for you. So you can see my resin that we mixed before. I might have to mix a little bit more because it's starting to cure. So you can see how it leaves a line when I drag my tool through it. Ooh, that is making less bubbles. Okay, so I think sealing it is a way to go on wood. And now I'm just going to push that down into that clear layer till it hits the bottom. I'm going to hit it with my heat tool. Those wood pieces do make a lot more bubbles than other things, but they just look so pretty in there. Okay, and I'm just going to fill it all the way to the top. Okay, so you would just keep filling it until it's all the way to the top. And then you let it cure again in the mold for 12 to 24 hours. And then your finished product again are these knobs with the wood encased in the resin. And you can do any color down here. I just liked the contrast of the black, so I tried that this time. But you could do whatever color you wanted to as your bottom layer, and it would look great. Some other things that I've tried in, putting into my resin are flowers. So again, you could use real flowers, or these were just floral stems from Michaels again. These aren't on the class list, but I just wandered the floral stem aisle and I found these tiny little roses. And so I did these knobs where I did a white layer at the bottom. I did some silver pearl powder brushed into the mold for that look on the outside edge. And then I just put my little rosebuds in there the same way that we did the wood and the leaves. So that's another thing you can do. Is that all you can put in? No, you can put in anything you want to. So I also browsed the miniatures aisle at Michael's and I found these teeny tiny little animals. And so these are done the same way. I just dipped it in the resin, did a coat at the bottom, little thin white. These are a little bit taller, so you can see I barely used any white as my base layer, and then most of it's clear to hold these little animals in here. I think these would be cute in a little boy's room, on a dresser, or even on toy bins. I imagine trying Legos in here. It's like put a Lego in one, then they know that that's the box for Legos, or put a crayon in one and that's where the art supplies go. So there's all kinds of things that you can put in your resin knobs. Okay, so for our last project.
Those would be great for a nursery.
They would be. Wouldn't they be cute?
Oh
my son's name is Noah, and when he was little, he had a Noah's Ark room, and those would have been really cute in his dresser. Now he's a grown-up, about to turn 23. Can't believe it. Not so little. I don't think he'd let me decorate his room anymore. So,
probably not.
Okay, for our final, what?
Probably not. Although he might if you pay for it.
Maybe. Probably. Noah's Ark he might not go for anymore, though. When he was little, you had more say. Okay, so for this last project, I'm going to show you how to do these marbled geode knobs. I want to show you what they look like. And this kind of combines a lot of the techniques that we've already done. If you've seen marbled coasters, this is similar to that. And I'm going to show you how to do some different techniques with these real quick in our last few minutes. Okay, so my base layer, I did the same way that we've been talking about in all of these classes, in all of these knobs since the beginning, right? So I mixed, again, some mica powder and some white, that same gold mica powder, a little bit more this time than I did on the other knob. And then, so it's a little more gold, a little more creamy, and some white opaque dye into a little bit of resin. And then I filled my mold part way, about halfway with that. And then you can ignore this one because that's our next step, but we're going to clean this off because I got my sticky fingers on it. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to use some of these similar colors, if this is still good, yep, to do kind of a geode pour. Okay. We can use our brown that we mixed that we didn't use too. All right, it's still good. Okay, so I am going to start by doing some of the pink, and this is very similar to the first knob we did. We've kind of circled back around, but I am going to do a little clear layer. Let me show you how you can use your silicone tool. You can use your silicone tool instead of a craft stick too if you wanted to. Works the same way. It's a little more flexible, but still works. And I'm going to put some clear. Actually, my resin is getting too cured, but I don't want to mix more and waste our time, so I'm just going to use it. Okay, so I'm just going to put a little bit of a clear line between my colors. Now, this I didn't do on the first one because I wanted them all to kind of mush together, right, and make that really pretty rock look. But this one, I want to keep my lines a little bit separate. And so that's what that clear line does, is it gives it somewhere for the ink to move toward each other, but it also kind of pushes it away from each other a little bit so that you can get that clear, defined edge. And again, it's resin, so it's not completely defined because it is fluid and it's going to move. I'm going to put some clear on either side of it. Okay, so now I don't know if you can see that very well, but you can see that I have more defined lines, and that's because I put that clear right down the middle. I'm going to add some foil flakes and some glitter to this one. And again, you can add your glitter however you want. You can add it by stirring it into a little bit of clear resin and then just pouring that in. Or you can do like I'm going to do here and just add it again with my little tool. So this is a little bit of copper foil that's also in that same foil pack with the gold. This one's the copper to get a different look. And just think about nature when you're out there and you're hiking and you see rocks and they have those beautiful strands of color flowing through them. And there's all these different striations in there. That's what you kind of go for. And I love doing them because they aren't perfect. They kind of have a fluid, natural way of flowing. Okay, and then this is some awesome chunky glass, vintage glass glitter from Michaels. It's Recollections brand. And I'm going to use the little scoop end of my tool this time. And I love using this to scoop up glitter. And I'm just going to place a little bit of glitter on this side. I like it because it kind of looks like the inside of a geode, that crunchy inside of the crystals. That's the look that you get with this. You can put as much or as little as you want in there. And then I'm just going to use my tool to kind of control even where my glitter is going. Just a little bit. Since my resin that I originally mixed is starting to cure, it's getting to be really tacky. So it's going to hold this glitter a little bit more where I want it to go. Okay, so that's the first step. That's the second step. So first step was the cream layer. Then you do this layer. Then you let that cure. And I'm still not full to the top yet. And that's what I've got going on right here. And then just to give it a little bit more bling and a little bit more of that look of those striations running through the rock, I'm going to take a gold paint pen. So this is just a bold tip gold paint pen. There's one on the list, okay, that works great. And this is my cured second layer of resin. And I'm just going to take this pen and I'm just going to use the skinny side of it. And I'm going to add a few striations of gold paint as well running through. Now this is where you can really just have fun with it. Kind of do whatever you want. Do some thicker ones, do some thin ones, some little half ones. Okay, and that just, you can draw on it so easily with a metallic pen. Super, super easy to do. So now all I would do is take my clear and put it right on top of that. You can see how that's getting thicker. Right on top of that final paint pen layer. So at first you saw it was running right off my stick, right? Now you can see that it's been sitting for, it's starting to cure. So it's getting to the point where use it or lose it. Okay, so there we have it. So I'd fill that all the way to the top. Mine's not quite to the top because I don't quite have enough resin, but when you're doing it, fill it all the way up to the top. And that's how you get, I'm going to take off my gloves for this part since I'm done with the sticky. That's how you get these really pretty striations in your geodes. Okay, and they're all finished and they're different from each other, but they feel good together, which I love about it. And I wanted to show you a couple of other ones done this same way. So these are what I call my river ones, but I use pink. So you could use blue, but I don't know if you can see in there, there's a tiny seashell in there, right there. So you can add rocks, you can add seashells, you can float the glitter in there, the foil. And then this one, I didn't do anything to the sides, but this one, I gilded the edges using that same gold paint pen. So I just took that paint pen, the bold tip, and just colored on the sides. And I didn't even coat it after that. And then I did a little bit of a rim around here. So it looks like it's metal gilded knob. So I wanted to show you that trick that you can also do with that paint pen. And it'll stay on there nice. You can do a glossy clear coat if you want to, but I didn't, and it has held up really, really well. The other thing that you can do using that same technique, using the colors and the clear, are doing ocean or river pours. So this is an ocean knob. So you can see here, this one is little tiny beads. Somebody asked if they could add beads. Those are little tiny beads that are being my sand. And then I just did layers of blue in gradient colors with white clear between them. And then a little bit of the white on the top to be my wave that's cresting onto my sand. And so I did it the same exact way that we did these, and they turned out just so nice. So I'm just going to put all of these out here because I know last class they wanted to see them all together. Does anyone have any last questions before we go? I don't know where we are on time. We have a few minutes left. Let me show you.
Not seeing any questions, but people are very impressed and they think everything is beautiful. They said, Manuela says it looks like makeup. What is the
It does kind of look like makeup.
Yeah. What is the name of the heat tool again?
This one is it's just called just a heat tool. That's what it is. Or a stamp. If you just went on michaels.com and searched heat tool, it would come up. So this one is an American Crafts one. I don't know if Michaels carries this one. It's just the one I had in my resin area of my studio here. So it's the one I use because it's already sticky and gunked up, and I don't care if it gets more resin on it when I'm touching it with my sticky hand. So, but any heat tool that's like this will work. Any of them will work. So I almost forgot that I wanted to chat real quick, since nobody has a question, about what else you can put knobs on. Okay. So I wanted to show you something my coworker made. This was a little stocking hanger. She just has 3 people in her family. So she went and found a board and whitewashed it. So these are just on the woodworking aisle at Michael's. And then she just put her knobs on here and then hung her stockings from it. And I found a little board that's a more neutral color walking around Michael's that I love. And I'm going to put some of these knobs on here and have a little mask hanging station for my family by the front door. So they'll stop leaving their masks on tables and counters and everywhere they're not supposed to be. And they can just have them right there when they're leaving to go to school or wherever they're going. Then what else can you do? Well, you could put them on canisters, right? Because they make really pretty pulls. So like this one would be a really pretty pull right on top of this canister. I don't know if you can see that. So you could either UV resin it on here or E6000 epoxy it. Make sure you get it centered. I'm just holding it there as an example. Or you could put the screw right through the lid if you have a drill, right? And then you have this pretty little pull on the top of your canisters. So you could do that. You could hang them straight on the wall. So just take these, you can put any, that's the cool thing about this, you can put any backer on it. So if you want to put like a picture hanging hook on the back and then put it on your wall and use it as part of your gallery element where you have a picture frame hanging down from it from ribbon. You could also use it on your wall as a curtain tie back. So you could wrap your curtain around it and just have your curtains falling along the side. You could use these on the ends of your curtain rods. I had that idea. You could put them on the top of candle lids as a little pretty decorative element if you are gifting something. Michaels has all kinds of these little cute clear boxes right now. And this one's heart-shaped for Valentine's Day, which I just loved. And I think that filled with candy with a little knob pull on the top. You could even put candy hearts inside it. You could put anything inside your knob. Would just be such a cute thing to do. So the possibilities are really endless when you think of what you could put a knob on. Just start looking around your house and thinking, what organization bin needs a knob? What do I want them to use them as part of a gift or part of another project that I'm working on? Because really, they're called drawer knobs, but they don't have to be used only for that. So I hope that you'll try these techniques, try them on your other resin projects. So glad you were here in class today. Love being with you guys. Thank you so much. And thanks to Michael.
Thanks, Shannon. Bye.
Thanks.